بحمد ربي أبدأ المنيرة ثم الصلاة والسلام السيرة على نبي اسمه محمد أبوه عبد الله منه مفرد
أبوه عبد الله منه مفرد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده نصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Continuing with our seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or rather like a synopsis of that. For those who remember the previous lesson, we discussed the Battle of Badr, the aftermath thereof. And that then led into the 5th Hijri, the 5th year after Hijrah, the Battle of Khandaq. We refer to it as the Battle of the Confederates. It's like the entire united Arab nation against the Muslims of Medina Munawwara. Salman Farsi radiallahu anhu had just accepted Islam. He came into Medina. Sahaba now got the intelligence, as we've explained before. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had his uyun, his agents out, that they're marching an army on Medina Munawwara. Now what happened was, they were all very deeply concerned about what do we do? Do we go out and meet them on the battlefield, or do we fight in Medina? And eventually the agreement was we're going to stay in Medina. But how do we kind of protect ourselves? Salman Farsi radiallahu anhu then says, well, where I come from, we dig a trench. So they can't get across the trench, and they have to stay on that side. And that's when the agreement was kind of concluded, that they were going to dig this trench 5 by 5 meters, like a 5 meter deep by 5 meters. They had 2 weeks. Now, brothers and sisters in Islam, first leadership lesson. Leader is not a person who sits and dictates to other people what to do. A leader is a person who's on the ground with his people, showing them how to do it. Right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the ground in Medina Munawwara, helping to dig the trench. And amazing things happen in the process. I can't go into that, unfortunately. I can only give you the basics of the actual incidences. But Sahaba were very, very poor at the time. They were going through terrible hardship. Most of them starving, had stones tied to their stomachs, so they had this practice of tying a stone to your stomach and strapping it up so that it pushes your stomach in. It kind of takes away the hunger pangs. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so hungry, he had 2 stones tied to his stomach, right? And then what happened, what led up to that army, that battle, was, or how they kind of won that battle, because now we're on this side of the trench, they're on that side of the trench, it's arrows across, and they can't jump across. There was a sporadic incident or two of kuffar jumping across, and they met a very unfortunate end on the Muslim side of the trench. But what led to the kind of battle coming to an end was, first and foremost, the Confederates came to Medina because the Jews from the Banu Qurayza tribe had breached the treaty, that agreement that we had come to in Medina Munawwara, the constitution, right? And they kind of assisted with that whole process. They were the inside man to bring the kuffar in from Makkah to attack the Muslims. So how things started going very pear-shaped for the kuffar of Makkah was, number one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the temperatures very cold, and it was extremely windy and very, very unpleasant. And they were intense, the Muslims were in Medina, right? Now we had one Sahabi coming to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, give me permission. I'm going to say a couple of very strange things, but I don't mean anything by it. Al-harbu khida', battle is deception. Let me go and solve this problem for you. So what he does, once he goes to the Jews of the Banu Qurayza tribe, and he says to them, listen, I got wind of, because they didn't know he'd accepted Islam yet. I got wind of the fact that the kuffar of Makkah are blaming you, that this thing is not working. And they're saying that, should anything go wrong, they're going to come for you, because you were the reason why it didn't work out. And he then went to the kuffar of Makkah, who also hadn't caught wind of the fact that he had become Muslim yet. And he said, you know what, I heard the Jews are actually plotting against you, so they're going to say X, Y, and Z. They think that you think that they've cheated and deceived you, and that they're scared that you're going to come for them. So maybe you must go and speak to them and appease them. So when they went to speak to them and to appease them, they said that we caught wind of this. So he literally set them up against one another. It's called gaslighting, by the way. It's something that the CIA also does. Allahu Akbar, I don't want to go into geopolitics. But they create he's probably going to say this to you, or he's probably going to say that to you, so that when it is said, you already have a preconceived idea of what's going to happen. And then they realize that things are going to go horribly pear-shaped here, and the alliance we thought that we had, we don't actually have. So now they've lost their morale because they thought they had an inside man, and the inside man is now withdrawn because of an agent that went and gaslighted. So he then went back to the Kuffar camp and said, listen, the Jews have pulled out of the whole thing. I don't think they're going to support us, X, Y, and Z. And next thing, the gale force winds started throwing cauldrons over, started throwing, well, you'd call it a dig, started throwing tents over, and Abu Sufyan just said, you know what, guys, let's just pack up shop and go home. We've been here for so long, nothing's happened, let's just leave. And that's how that battle came to a very quick end, right? But the Muslims had kind of a very short-lived celebration because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them march on the Banu Qurayza and kicked them out of where they were staying, right? This is how the whole thing came to a swift end. Now, post that, all of that kind of, frizzled down, a year and a half or so passes, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sees a dream of his going for Umrah. And the Sahaba are elated because they haven't been in Makkah for a number of years. It's now 7 odd years they haven't been in Makkah Mukarramah, and they want to go back, to do this, the Umrah. They want to go into Makkah again. So what happens is they then all put their ihrams on and off they go. And when they get to Hudaybiyah, it's just outside Makkah, they are stopped. And the kuffar refuse for them to come in. And it was a whole back and forth. And they insisted that, you're not coming for Umrah, it's not going to happen. And the more they tried to reason with them, and they send one negotiator after the other to try and convince Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to pack up his Sahaba and go back. And they're all saying, no, but we're coming in peace, we've got no weapons, we just want to do a Umrah and leave. And we're all in our ihram already, point blank refuse, you can send someone in. They send Uthman in. So Uthman radiallahu anhu, being a very respected person there, when he gets into Makkah, they say to him that, no, you can do a Umrah quickly if you want to because you're here. And he said, how can I do a Umrah when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam can't? Then the story gets spread that they've killed Uthman. And it probably comes with somebody saying, what if they kill Uthman? And then what if they kill Uthman? Did somebody say kill Uthman? Oh no, they killed Uthman. Broken telephone. The story goes, they've killed Uthman. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gathers the Sahaba and listen. If it is true that they've killed Uthman, not I heard that they killed Uthman, guys, we're going in guns blazing. No. If it is true that they've killed Uthman, who is with me to go and avenge him? And all the Sahaba pledged their allegiance. To the death, they will go in and avenge Uthman. Here, Uthman arrives. Right? But the allegiance stood, and it shows the resolve of Sahaba radiallahu anhum with regards to their faith and their iman. Anyway, long story short, the negotiations ensue, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam agrees to almost every clause that they put in that agreement. If any, some of the significant ones, if any one of the Muslims go from Medina to Makkah, they will not be allowed to go back to Medina. If anyone comes from Makkah to Medina, they must be sent back to Makkah. Right? Very one-sided. They will lay down arms for however many years it was. No fighting, no squabbling, no battles. And this is what actually led up to the conquest of Makkah, because they made that clause, that condition, that there will be no violence. And then they breached the contract by going to pick on little villages outside of Medina on the outskirts. So Allah subhanahu, and like I said in the previous lesson, that when Allah wants something to happen and when Allah wants you to achieve something, He will ensure that it pans out in your favor. And this is a dua I want everybody to learn. If you learn nothing from today except this, then alhamdulillah, I think you've learned a great deal. That much like Hudaybiyah seemed to be completely against the Muslims, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina. We have given you a manifest victory. And the Sahaba couldn't understand how it was a victory. But like I said, the dua I want you to make is just like Hudaybiyah was a manifest victory despite it looking like it was completely against the Muslims. Oh Allah, whatever I'm experiencing, let it just always pan out in my favor. Let whatever happens to me just pan out in my favor. Let it just happen to be the best thing that could have happened. Let the instead of, when I thought things were falling apart, let them be falling into place. Do you understand? And I've made this dua, I do make this dua, and I've seen a great benefit with this. And I pray that Allah opens our eyes to see how when we think things are falling apart, they're actually falling into place, and we see how things pan out in our favor. So make that dua, inshallah. Whatever happens must just pan out in our favor. So what happened post this treaty? Now there's no fighting, there's no war, there's no what's it called, skirmishes or anything, there's peace. Sahaba grow from 1,400 odd Sahaba who participated in the Umrah and got stuck in Hudaybiyah. They came back the next year and completed that Umrah, the Umratul Qadha. They went from that 1,400 to more than 10,000 Sahaba. 10,000 were the soldiers that marched on Makkah. So what about the wives and the children at home? Do you understand how significantly it grew? So this is the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear this. That how can you say Islam spread by the sword when Islam grew like tenfold in that most hostile period, when there was a treaty of its nature completely one-sided and biased against the Muslims? Islam grew so significantly. There was no sword. There wasn't allowed to be any fighting, and yet the Muslims grew from 1,400 to 10,000 who were able-bodied to fight, right? But now one of the clauses was Abu Basir. The one with if you go from Makkah to Medina, you must be sent back to Makkah. A man by the name of Abu Basir was being persecuted and mercilessly tortured in Makkah by his family because he had accepted Islam. They refused for him to do hijrah. So while this treaty is being negotiated, he arrives. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asks, we haven't signed the treaty yet, let him come with us, because look at what he's going through. Point blank refused, he must go back to his family and they can do what they want with him. So he breaks loose. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had to send him back. He breaks loose and he goes off to an oasis nearby, and they literally just started collecting one I don't want to say vagabond or vagrant, but one escapee after the other, one refugee after the other, running away from Makkah, unable to, if they go to Medina, they must be sent back, don't want to go back to Makkah. So they ended up by Abu Basir at this little oasis. And they started waylaying caravans, until eventually the agreement was come to that, we're going to cancel this clause of the treaty. And Abu Basir got the letter that please come to Medina, that clause of the treaty has come to an end, as he breathed his last, and he passed away with that letter in his hand. Allahu Akbar. So, as I explained to you, the treaty was signed. There was not supposed to be skirmishes. Muslims are flourishing. Muslims go to Makkah. People are seeing Islam, and they're not allowed to go back. So now Islam is spreading in Makkah. Makkans are coming to Medina. They're seeing Islam. They're taking it back, and they've been affected. So now they go back to Makkah and they say, "This is what we've seen," and people start growing and becoming Muslim by the dozens. And what then happened was, as we explained, the kuffar started breaching the clause of the treaty with regards to skirmishes, started picking on little villages on the outskirts of Medina Munawwara, and eventually Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then decided, well, we're going to march on Makkah now. We've got the numbers. Allah obviously inspired and revealed to him that they're going to march on Makkah, and off they went to conquer Makkah Mukarramah. I believe our time has come to an end, and our next discussion, the last of our series, would be on the conquest of Makkah and the aftermath thereof, and some significant incidences with regards to that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with understanding. Please don't forget the dua I've asked you to make. Oh Allah, whatever happens in my life, let it all just work out in my favor, and when it seems like things are falling apart, please let them be falling in place, and let me see how you have been so kind to me in all of this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq and understanding. Subhanallah bihamdih, subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
بحمد ربي يبدأ المنيرة ثم الصلاة والسلام السيرة على نبي اسمه محمد أبوه عبد الله منه مفرد.